Hi guys, today I wanted to talk to you about primer. All right, so I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about some basics when it comes to your primer. So primer is one of those things that you really should be using whenever you're putting foundation on your face. You don't necessarily need it if you're doing like a tinted moisturizer or a BB cream. You can use it with those items. But with foundation, you really want to use a primer. Primer has a lot of different benefits. Primer can moisturize your skin, it can mattify your skin, it can help fill in lines, pores, imperfections, things like that. And it just really makes a really amazing, consistent and smooth base for your foundation. But there are some things you need to know about primer before you really get into using it. So not all primer is created equal. You can't really just go and grab a primer from the shelf and that one's gonna work perfectly for you. There's a lot of times some trial and error, but I wanted to kind of give you guys some tips and information that hopefully will help you pick out the right primer for your skin. So number one, there are really two basic kind of primers out there. You have water-based primers and you have silicone-based primers. And they're exactly what they say they are. One has a silicone base, one has a water base. The number one thing you want to make sure when you are buying a primer is you are matching your primer base with the base of your foundation. So if you already wear a foundation that is a water base or that is a silicone base, you would want to make sure your primer matches that base as well. So a water-based primer is not going to work well with a silicone-based foundation and vice versa. So if you have a foundation that you already absolutely love, like it's your ride or die foundation, the first thing you want to do before you go buy a primer is take a look at the ingredients on the back of it and find out if it's a water-based foundation or a silicone-based foundation. Another thing that you want to also kind of think about before you go and buy a primer is what kind of skin you have. So if you have more of oily skin, silicone-based primer is gonna be better for you, because a silicone-based primer, one of the really awesome benefits of a silicone-based primer is that it's very mattifying, and there's different levels of mattifying when it comes to primers, and you can kind of get into that if you go somewhere like an Ulta or Sephora. They can kind of help put you in the right direction when it comes to how mattifying you want it to be. But silicone-based primers really help mattify. Also, if you have very dry skin, like I have more dry skin, I'm not gonna use a silicone-based primer because it's gonna really kind of dry my skin out. It's gonna be a little bit too much matte for me, and it's gonna make my foundation kind of cakey, and it's not gonna sit right on my face. That brings us to the other kind of primer, which is a water-based primer. So water-based primer is gonna be a lot better for you if you have more dry skin, because they tend to have more moisturizer in them, and they just tend to be just more moisturizing for your skin. So I pretty much only use water-based primers because I have, more maturing skin. My skin is starting to get really dry. Every once in a while, I might throw a little bit of a silicone primer on my nose because that is like my only real oily area, which you can do, but it really depends on what foundation I'm using. I have found I can put a little bit of a silicone-based primer on my nose to help kind of mattify my nose a little bit if I need to, as long as I'm using a water-based primer, but I'm not gonna use like a silicone-based primer because it's not gonna work with the rest of the primer on my face. Those are really the biggest benefits. So you really wanna make sure that you know what your skin type is before you buy a primer. There are so many primers out there. I've tried a ton. Smashbox is a really great silicone-based primer if that's what you need. Tatcha is a really great water-based primer. Touch of Soul is like one of my most absolute favorite water-based primers. If you have really dry skin, it really, really moisturizes and hydrates your skin. And the nice thing too about primers is they're gonna kind of help fill in those lines, and they're gonna kind of help unage your skin a little bit, if that makes sense. So you really wanna make sure you're choosing the right primer. That's the first step to the base of your makeup, and it's really a big, huge fundamental foundation of how your makeup's gonna look when all is said and done. I see lots of pictures that people send me a lot of times when they're asking about makeup and stuff, where like they have these little separations and you kind of see like where the foundation is kind of moving away from itself, and that's usually because you're not using the right primer. So make sure you really ask yourself those questions: what type of skin you have, what type of foundation you're already using, and if you aren't using a foundation yet, make sure when you go to buy your primer, you buy a foundation that matches the base of your primer. And then really, what are you wanting your primer to do? Are you wanting your primer to mattify your face? Are you wanting your primer to give you more of a dewy, moisturized look? That's really gonna help you decide which primer you need. And it seems like a simple thing. It seems like a really quick, easy thing for us to kind of talk about and for me to explain, but you would not believe how many times I get asked about like, hey Jessie, why is my makeup look like this? Or hey, you know, I tried this foundation and I really didn't like it, but it should have looked, you know, they'll send me a picture and I'm like, oh, it shouldn't look like that, or it shouldn't have done that. And a lot of times it's not the foundation, and you're like, oh, it's not working, I can't get any foundation to work. And a lot of times it's just because you need to go back to the beginning, go back to that base and fix your primer. And that's really it. This is just a really short, simple video for you guys, just to kind of help explain the difference. I know you can kind of go down a rabbit hole if you search on Google about the different primers, and you can really do more research if you want. But I really just wanted to make sure you guys understood the fundamental basics of primer, because I feel like it's something that a lot of people kind of miss. The last thing I will say is, I know with like a silicone-based primer, a lot of times it's not gonna have like that tacky feeling. It's gonna feel more smooth. It's not the same base, so it's gonna feel a little bit different on your skin. It really is gonna feel more smooth. You're gonna see kind of a blurring effect on your face with a mattifying silicone-based primer, whereas with a water-based primer, you're gonna feel a little bit more of like a tack or a stick, and that's totally normal. Don't freak out if you put a primer on and you're like, oh my gosh, my face feels sticky. That's gonna help adhere your foundation to your face and keep it where it needs to be. I hope this was helpful. I know it was kind of a quick little tip video, and I wanna do a little bit more of these kind of fast, give you the information on one very specific thing and move on. I wanna make sure you guys have the little information you need to just kind of step your makeup game up to the next level. If you guys are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. And if you like this video, give me a like, I'd really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that notification bell to get notifications on all the videos I do in the future. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you on the next video.